All right, guys, let's do some railroading. We're picking up with our N171 26 South on Hyrail Simulations Fitzgerald sub for run 8. We're heading to Fitzgerald. We're going to take this train to Fitzgerald, do a crew change. This is a period train. So we're running it like they did back in 2002, 2003. We got two SD70 Aces on the head end. 12,622 tons and 0.7 HPT. We're just south of Lilly, a place called Lilly in Georgia, and we're just north of Vienna. So I think we'll pick up just shortly when we get around there to Vienna. All right, we're rounding the curve into Vienna. We're just kind of dragging along a little bit here. But look at there, they even got the pronunciation in the location tag. It is Vienna. It's no relation to the sausage though. It has nothing to do with the sausages, but anyway, Vienna, Georgia is a cool little area. We're really starting to kind of get into that rolling terrain in the southern part of Georgia, southern part of the routes, rolling through agricultural areas and stuff like that. It really kind of starts back around Lilly's, where I think it really starts getting into the farmland. It's basically the tale of two different railroads if you think about it. The north end is completely different than the south end, right? North end's a lot steeper grades, a lot sharper curves, it's slower moving, like I said, 1% grades on average. And it's woodland area too. As you get further south, it opens up more into farmland. See, I'm missing the texture there, but I do have a fix for that texture. It was sent to me. Excuse me. That was sent to me. Forgot to put it in. You guys will be getting a fix for it later at some point, but there is a fix for those signal cabinets. But anyway, it is a tale of two different railroads. You know, south end, especially south of Fitzgerald, is a lot faster railroad. A lot more extreme hogbacks, so the hogbacks are like just down and then right back up. But so it's a tale of two different railroads because the terrain is different. But it's really the tale of two different railroads because of it really kind of is literally as far as the formation of this line. So basically everything south of Fitzgerald to Waycross was a conglomeration of a lot of different railroads, really Montezuma South, honestly, but it's a conglomeration of a lot of different railroads that were acquired and formed what it is now, the Fitzgerald sub. But south of Fitzgerald was Waycross Airline, and it changed names a lot of times. I'm just doing this all off the top of my head, but a lot of that was built prior to 1900, late 1800s, especially out of like Waycross and Nichols, I think, was the earliest section that was done. But, you know, in the late 1800s, construction techniques were a lot different, and they didn't do as much cutting and filling back then, right? So they kind of hugged the terrain a little bit more than what they did later on. That's why you see the extreme hogbacks and stuff like that. I think around 1901, they built from Fitzgerald to Cordele, and I want to say it was the Atlantic and Birmingham by then. They changed the name from the Waycross Airline to Atlantic and Birmingham. And by 1902, they had made it to Montezuma, and Montezuma was the end of the line for a few years, actually. So basically everything south of Fitzgerald was built prior to 1900, and then Fitzgerald to Montezuma by 1902. They hung out in Montezuma for a few years, and they reorganized the railroad. And like I said, there was a lot of technicalities and stuff to that I couldn't tell you about. But they reorganized the railroad into the Atlanta, Birmingham, and Atlantic in preparation to start building north out of Montezuma. And they hired a man by the name of Alexander Bonnyman. He is a very important figure for the Fitzgerald sub to Manchester and the Atlanta, or the Lineville, I should say. I don't know why I'm saying Atlanta. So he was very important figure in the fact that, well, one, it was kind of cool. He's from Scotland, And he moved to the United States when he was a kid. He went to school at the University of Kentucky. And he got a degree in engineering, construction engineering, not railroad engineering, not like train engineer, but construction engineering, right? And at some point, he hired on with the Atlanta, Birmingham, and Atlantic. He became the chief construction engineer and general manager or something like that. And he basically was tasked with building the line north from Montezuma to Atlanta and Birmingham. All at the age of 30. He was out there trailblazing and building railroads at the age of 30. How awesome is that? Man, I would have loved that. What a life, right? To be able to like build a whole entire railroad and say you did that. Just incredible, right? So he built the railroad out of Montezuma. And he built it to really high construction standards, way higher than what they had done prior. I want to say he got Talbotton around 1905. And then 1906 to 1907, they made the big push to Atlanta and Birmingham simultaneously. Both routes. And did an amazing job. You see his bridge work, his abutments, bridge abutments, concrete arches for drainage, that sort of thing, culverts. A lot of that stuff is still standing today, over 100 years later. Just an extremely high standard of construction, so the grades were, you know, they didn't transition as sharp, a lot smoother. You didn't have the same kind of hogbacks and stuff like that. So that would be why it, another reason why it's tailored two different railroads. It's tailored two different railroads because of the terrain, just the way the terrain changes, but it's tailored two different railroads because one end, the southern end, was a conglomeration of a lot of people's construction, and the northern end was Alexander Bonnyman's. So, you know, like on the Lineville side and the Manchester side, not nearly as many hogbacks and stuff like that. Like he did a lot of grading and filling. Really high construction standards, probably a part of the reason why the Atlanta, Birmingham, and Atlantic went into receivership not long after it was formed, because I guess they had a hard time justifying the cost, right? Eventually it paid off big time. I mean, look at the powerhouse railroad that it is now, but back in the day, they struggled and went into receivership several times. But like I said, his, you know, is testament to his work, because a lot of that stuff is still standing. A lot of the bridges and abutments, and there hasn't really been a whole lot of major line changes that I can think of. I can think of one in LaGrange, Georgia. That was purely because they just wanted to get it out of town, and that was due to a merger with A&WP. But after CSX was formed, but I can't think of a lot of alignments off of his original route. I mean, off the top of my head. All right, anyway, we're on a descent to Ross. We got approach mirror. Last episode, we talked about meeting Q592. I was hoping we would not meet him at Cordele, and it looks like we're not. Now, I said in the last video, yeah, I got approach. All right, I said in the last video, if we stop at Cordele, we'll never get started. That's kind of a stretch. We could, and I've done it before on coal trains in game. But it was tough. It was a tough start out of Cordele. It's about a 1%. It's actually on the profile. If you look at real life profile, it's about 1.02% grade. It's doable, but it's really tough, right? It's not an easy start. And, you know, technically, like, they shouldn't give you a train on the railroad that's like you can't get started at any point along the line, right? But that's in a perfect world. Like, nothing is ever perfect on the railroad. If you're any kind of railroader or know anything about it, you know nothing is ever perfect. Things never go to plan. So, and no two locomotives are built the same. Like, one set of SD70 Aces may be better pulling than another set, just because of wear and tear and stuff like that. So yeah, technically you should be able to get started. You know, in real life, there's a chance you may not be able to. So I didn't want to meet at Cordele just to save ourselves a little trouble, but yeah, we got to stop up here. Let's tone him up, see if we can get a light real fast. Yeah, let's see if we can get a light so we won't have to stop. We just go right in. There we go, we're request signal. Yeah, we're kind of rolling with a little bit here. Hopefully he gives us light. There we go. All right, we got our medium approach. Yeah, that was a little nice. That was a little sketch right there. We should have been preparing to stop better, but I knew he'd give us a light. I had faith in Otto. Otto was going to hook us up. All right, let's go ahead and we'll knock the air off. We'll get pulling on it over this little knot right here. Yeah, so technically we should be able to start anywhere. Those are some locations in real life and in game that were just really hard to get started at. So, Cordele is not a place I'd want to start a loaded coal train with 0.7 HPT, but it's doable. There's more work. It's more work than I like to do. All right, let's head in at Ross. We're going to be eating a 592 here. We got a medium approach. This is a 30-mile-an-hour siding. I think all the other sidings on the Fitz, at least back then, were 25-mile-an-hour sidings. The track and the switches were only good for 25, even though you got a medium aspect in, right? You can only do 25. I want to say Ross was the first signal siding on the entire Fitzgerald sub. I think this was the OG. Like, Ross was the first. That's why you got the tri-headed searchlights going in, which was true to life back then. There we go. We'll just kind of ease in here a little bit. Yeah, I'm glad. I'd much rather meet at Ross. Ross is a good spot to meet. Cordele, not so much, especially southbound. It's just really not. It's more of a hassle than it's worth. I like to railroad with minimal effort, right? Hopefully, we'll be able to keep right on pulling out the south end. We shouldn't have to stop. There's going to be another train behind the 592, but I think he's a good way back. So it shouldn't be an issue. We should be able to just keep right on rolling. Ross is kind of pretty much downhill, just a little past the south end, and you got the knot at the NS crossing. Then it kind of goes downhill a little bit past there, and then you got the big grade out of Cordele, 1%. It's like a just shy of a 1%, and then it's got like a 0.25% shelf, and then maybe 1.02%. All right, come by Ross storage track here. This is where the Cordele switcher would make his set outs and pickups for the road freights. Back in the day, it was a 723, 724. Did that. They made the set outs and pickups here. They made them here as opposed into the storage track in Cordele because they didn't want to tie up town, stopping and doing all that. So, let's come out of this. Let's get ready to go, and we'll use some dynamics down to the south end. Yeah, 723 and 724 for a local. That was a hot train. I always went in the hole for that train because they ran the entire subdivision picking up and setting out, and they worked some industries too, some different locations as well too. So they had a lot of distance to cover in a little bit of time, and they were going dead all the time too on top of that. So yeah, went in the hole a lot for that train. For a local, it was like, to me, it was as hot as a piggyback. Really, it was like a slop freight piggyback. Man, they ran that train. Usually always had 3 B30s or B36s on the head end. Just all the times I remember it. And they would go. Man, I'm telling you, they would go. Let's pull over this little knot right here a little bit. Yeah, we're getting a little bit slow. Kind of hanging out, waiting on 592 to get cleared up so we can continue south. There he is. Nice. Q592. Waycross to Chicago service. Caught that train a lot. It was actually an assigned job. That's one of the first assigned jobs I ever got to stand for. So I would jump on it. It was Waycross to Chicago. I took it. Manchester to Birmingham was the assigned job. South of Manchester is on the I-1 pool. And so Manchester to Birmingham, it was a assigned job. You take 592 up, and you take 127 back, which was a really good piggyback. Had a lot of good trips on that pig. It was probably the second hottest pig on the line. 592. Usually had a Manchester cut on the head end. And then it had the BN cut behind that. And then the Chicago cars. Usually the Chicago cars, you can tell where that cut started because it had a big cut of molten sulfur tanks. But you take this train in Manchester, you make your set out of there. Usually Georgia Pacific cars. And then you take it north to Boyles in Birmingham. You have your BN cut. You'd have to set out up there every time. That's why a lot of guys didn't jump on that job, because you had to do a fair amount of switching on it. But I didn't mind it so much. It wasn't too bad. You know, I think a lot of people shied away from it because you usually spent 12 hours on that train, you know, and then at the end you'd have to switch. But we got here medium clear out of the siding. Nice. All right, so we can go with it. Now we do have the 30 down here on the south end, so we're just going to kind of ease down there right now. Our 30 is going to start down there at that curve way off in the distance to be our 30. So yeah, 592 wasn't bad if you didn't mind the switching. I didn't mind it, and I like the time off that I got in between trips too. It was one of the better ones. Like if you wanted a little bit of a break, we're gonna have to do some dynamics coming out of here. All right, let's gather up our slack here. Kind of a tricky spot. It's a tricky spot right here because you got this dip just prior to the curve, and then you got to pull out of here. And you got to pull across the NS crossing there, and you've got the 30, and then you've got the big grade out of Cordele. It's really just kind of a tricky location. And she's running us a little fast out of there. There we go. There, I think we're good to start coming back out of it a little bit here. So we're going to start our climb up to the NS crossing. Try to maintain that 30 as much as I can, because we'll slow down pretty good. There we go. We should be able to start pulling now. We may run a little bit fast coming out of the siding, but I'm okay with that. I'll take a few mile an hour. And since we got her all bunched up, we're going to kind of ease the slack out a little bit. We're not going to come too much out of the throttle. Alright, Spur's got to put his water bottle down here for a second. See what our time looks like here. 22 minutes, not too bad. 22 minutes in. Alright, got her stretched out. We opened the throttle a little bit. You're going to see my running. I don't adhere to the train handling rules. I do to an extent, but I don't get crazy with it. There was stuff they did back in the day they didn't either, like in real life, really. I mean, nothing bad, but you know, you could wipe the throttle and get away with it. You could absolutely wipe the throttle and get away with it. Some other practices, and a lot of this stuff was just holdovers from like steam engine days and stuff like that too, like bunching on the side of a hill. Got a little slower than what I wanted to coming out of there. That was my fault. I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, you know, I adhered to the rules enough back in the day. I don't need to do it again. My whole operating philosophy is to get the train from point A to point B in one piece. Don't get a knuckle. Don't derail it. And try not to get any plus 40s on the accelerometer, and I call that a good trip. I mean, honestly, like, that's a really good trip. There, got the Cordele water tower. That's true to life. That's really there. Cool landmark in Cordele. So we'll go over this knot here at, what do we got? Do we have a clear? Yeah, okay. I thought we had an approach for a second. Go over this knot here at Cordele. Go down just a little bit before we start the big climb. We should get up to about 30-ish. Cross over the NS here. I love Cordele. Cordele is such a cool railroad town. Of course, you guys know it has the, I think it has a rail cam there and the platform. None of that was there back when I did it, though. That's all later. There you go. Got A730 tied down. Gonna be the heart of Georgia Railroad over there on the left. Former Seaboard Airline. There we go. I think we're good with that. Cool thing, when I was working, they just had started doing the dark future scheme. Oh, locomotives. They just had started doing that. I remember getting some that still smelled like paint. Not my favorite. I'd much rather had the bright future. Thought it was a very classy kind of looking scheme. All right, if you look down the tracks here at Cordele, we got our climb. You see the first little climb here up to the shelf. It's about a 1% right there that we're looking at. Right, yeah, it's about a 1%, give or take. If you can stop, if we had to go in the siding, I'd do my best to stop as far down that 0.25% shelf as I could before getting to the south end. It helps you out a lot. There we go. All right, Cordele, big climb out. It gets up to 1.02%. They'll drag us down a lot. Cordele was another place I didn't like meeting because one of these crossings down here we had to cut. I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't this one. I think it was the next one down we had to cut. Yeah, I'm almost certain it was the next one down, maybe. One of those. It definitely wasn't this one, though. But anytime you stop here for any duration, you'd have to cut that crossing. And I remember one of the last times I went in at Cordele, I was on a northbound in real life. And we had to go in at Cordele for 2. And I had to cut that crossing, and it was raining. It was in the rain. It was in the rain. So we went by the crossing. I swung off the locomotive. He pulled by. I cut it. And I just hung out down there at the crossing in the rain, right? I found me a covered hopper that I could get up under the porch, the end of it, and hung out there for waiting on those 2 trains. It basically sucked, right? It basically sucked. It wasn't fun. So yeah, not fond memories of Cordele. Usually, I remember a feeling of dread. If you had to go in the hole for a train at Cordele, you hope you wouldn't be there too long because you didn't have to cut that crossing. I want to say it had something to do with the highway patrol. Maybe their post was around there or something. I want to say it was this crossing right here, maybe. Can't remember. I have to look that up. I have to go back and look. And I remember another northbound that I was taking through Cordele. And I'd caught it on a roster call. Now you gotta think, when I worked, I hardly ever stood for a job on the south end. Like, all the old heads went down there because they're good trips. Excuse me. All the old heads went south because it's a better trip. So I never stood for anything down there. So the only time I caught trips on the I-1 was basically off the extra board or a roster call when I was on the F2 pool of Birmingham, which I got a lot. But I caught a roster call down here, and I remember going northbound on a slot freight. I want to say it was a 684 or something. And we're dropping down this grade into Cordele. It was always super fun from the south, going north, dropping into Cordele because you're hauling butt, and then all of a sudden you're laying in the dynamics and the brakes to slow down for that 30 down there, right? I think the 30 was a little further south though back in the day. I'm almost sure it was, but either way, my engineer set the train brake, and I guess we had a snapshot, or a lot of guys call them dynamiters. We call them snapshots, so I think we were like one of the only railroads that ever called it snapshots, but we went into emergency right there in the middle of Cordele. The slack ran in so hard on us, it was incredible. I just knew we put it on the ground, like it literally almost put us in the floor. And we get stopped down about the south end of Cordele, and I grabbed my stuff. I grabbed the air hose wrench and an air hose, and I was like, well, I'm gonna start walking, because I thought maybe we'd got an air hose on a crossing or something. I wasn't really sure what happened, but I think it was a snapshot. But engineer's like, don't go yet, let's see if we get the air back up. Sure enough, the air came back up on the bottom, and we knocked the brakes off and went on about our business. But it's just one of those random things, like you rolling along at a good clip, and then all of a sudden, bam, you stop. You know. All right. You see, we're down to 13 on the grade. We're pulling pretty good here, right? It's gonna be, yeah, we're on a 0.24% shelf right here, so. She may pick up a little bit more speed, but it's a pretty good pull out of Cordele, right? It's kind of deceiving, but luckily it's tangent too, so you don't have any curves pulling against you. All right, here we are about south end of Cordele with a clear. So we'd say CSX in 17126 got clear south Cordele, 4846 south out. We've got one more train to meet. I'm not sure who or where, but it'll be somewhere between Fitzgerald and here. We'll meet them. All right, there we are, knocking down the south end. We are 32 minutes into it. I don't know if we're going to... we may call it a little bit south of here, guys. We may call it a little bit south here and then take it on to Fitzgerald. We'll see. I definitely don't want to end the... yeah, see, there's our 1.02% right there. So that's pretty dang close. It's really kind of incredible, like, how close the profile... It's not exact, but it is really, really freaking close. It really is. It blows my mind. Like I said, we had the little under 1% grade, and then we had the little shelf, and then now we got the 1.02%. You see, we're on a 1.02%, but we're actually running a little faster, because that shelf back there helped us out. Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll get on his, where it flattens out down here, it goes down a little bit. And we'll call it, and we'll pick up one more episode to Fitzgerald. All right, Burnett Boulevard. There you go, knock that down. Spur on the left. I can't remember what that was back in the day, but I think way back in the day, like in the 80s and 70s, there's a wood yard there. There's a pulpwood yard. Pulpwood was king in the southeast back in the day. All right, we're still pulling on that grade out of Cordele. It's the longest. It's the longest It just seems like forever for some reason. The grade doesn't look that bad right here. It's 0.25%, but man, it takes you forever to get off of it. Really just does. Coming up on Cape Road down here. Yeah, we haven't even picked up like a steady 15 the whole way. There we go. Now we're starting to pick up a little speed. Coming up on Drexel Chemical. Man, that place has been there forever. I want to say that was there back during the coastline days. I could be wrong, but I think it was. It looks like it's going to be top of the grade right up here, so we'll get past it a little ways and then we'll call it. Yeah, I want to say that place has been there for a while. I want to say it's in like, I've got a timetable, it's like 80, 78 or 80 or something like that. I want to say that was in it. I could be wrong, but I have to go back and look, but I think that was there. Our grade, minus 0.24, so we finally own a downhill side. So basically our grade crest back there, right there at Drexel. Finally getting some speed. We can ditch the sand here. Next siding is going to be Hatley. We'll go to Hatley and then I think Rebecca and then Fitzgerald, right? I think so. It's been, man, it's been so long. It's hard to believe how long it's been. It really just is. Time flies, right? Alright guys, we're finally on a 0.82% downhill, so I think this is going to be a good spot to stop because it's going to be a good spot to start. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Hope y'all enjoyed. Love all of you. Thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate each and every one of you for helping the channel grow and prosper. And with all that said, we'll catch you on the rails next time. Peace!